Hey there guys, it's Metro, and today we are back with yet another video in the series where I give my detailed opinion about Blood Death Knight topics in the video game World of Warcraft, the expansion Battle for Azeroth. And this time we're going to be talking about a very frequently asked question, one that I'm really kind of surprised by. I didn't really get this question a lot in Legion, but I'm getting it a lot in BFA now, probably because of the changes to tanking. You know, things are a little bit different for tanks. You're relying a lot more on the healer. And obviously, the healer can have a bigger impact on you and the dungeon overall than perhaps they could have in previous expansions. So that, of course, topic-wise, is what is my favorite healer? What is my preferred healer, more so, for Mythic plus dungeons when we're pugging, okay? So, again, this is about pugging. I'm assuming that 95% of the people asking this question are asking because if, you know, I had to pick of the litter, which healer would I choose? If that's not the case, then the answer is the healer that you know the best, right? The healer in tank symbiosis is more than just, can this person heal me at the right times? You want to have a kind of an ebb and flow, a yin and yang, let's put it that way. My CDs are up, now they're down. The healer's CDs are up, now they're down, etc. You want to kind of work together in that way. So, you know, if that's the general question, what type of healer am I talking about besides classes? We're talking about one that you synergize well with, that really you understand the most and that understands you the most. But regardless, I assume that's not what people are asking. Just wanted to get that out of the way in case anybody was confused. So if we're talking about pure pugging and just empirical class combinations, what do I think the best healer is? Now, typically, I would make a tier list ranking all healers in Mythic Plus dungeons. And I'm still going to do that over the course of the expansion, but we're not quite ready for that yet. Right now, we're still learning more about tanks, and eventually we'll be able to learn more about healers. But for now, all we're going to think and consider on is whether the healer works well with me, not just Blood Death Knights, but me, my playstyle. And I think the number one overall, the one that I would be most preferred to see in dungeons is Discipline Priest. You can kind of see it down below with the details list there. But Discipline Priest just does everything that I want my healer to do in dungeons. A main reason that I would pick Discipline Priest as the number one preferred healer is because they'll by default do pretty good damage. They don't have to try hugely to do decent damage. And they're not the de facto kings of DPS. You know, they do a lot of damage, and we could debate this for a while, but either way, regardless of how much damage they do, they're gonna do damage without having to try. And this is a big problem I have when pugging, because a lot of healers, they don't really like to do damage. And as you might see in many dungeons, especially on live stream, I'm easily out healing the healer on many packs. And if nobody else is taking damage and I'm doing more healing than the healer, then why are they there? What's their purpose? Their purpose should be to help elevate the pace of the dungeon with DPS, interrupt, and other utility. And unfortunately, Discipline Priest is really the only one that's going to do that as a core part of their kit. Every other healer is going to have to want to play better and want to elevate, and it's not a very common thing. So that, I would say that is my number one. Number two, overall preferred healer, I'm going to say something that probably is going to surprise some people. I'm going to say Restoration Shaman, okay? And I'm going to say Resto Shaman for one simple reason, and it's kind of the same reason that we picked Disc, okay? They have the most impactful utility in a 5-man group, all right? And I'm talking about mainly interrupts, but we also have Earth Ellie on deck. We have, Spirit Link really could be considered a utility, but it's an incredibly strong cooldown. It's going to save your group in a lot of different ways. They also have Stun Totem, right? They have a Tremor Totem for Fear in Untitled Chapter. It can be useful in King's Rest too. It's a very wide kit for utility. And if it was me pugging and I saw a pretty good Resto Shaman, I'm going to tend to gravitate towards picking them for my playstyle. Also, you know, Bloodlust, you know, you never know when you need Bloodlust. You know, I know a lot of people are focused on drums, but it is very nice to have the extra % from a proper Bloodlust, a proper class with Bloodlust. So I would say number two, Resto Shaman. Their throughput is not desirable in a lot of situations. It can be worse than other healers in many cases, but it doesn't matter at all to me. Just having that 5th interrupt, that AoE stun, that fallback if we need the Earth Ellie, these things are literally, to me, invaluable, and I really can't recommend them enough, at least the way I play my Blood DK. After that, things start to get a little bit more cloudy. Those are my top two for sure. The rest are kind of, you know, whatever. I would pick number 3 overall as Resto Druid. I think Resto Druid is still very flexible, very bulky, and a very mobile healer. And the hot model works very well with Blood Death Knight's prowess. You know, when I have Vamp Blood up, I'm constantly doing a lot of good healing. I'm not really healing myself to full, though, like I used to. So just a blanket of hots on me and, you know, their single target components as well is going to be enough to keep me where I'm comfortable. I don't really need big burst healing because I do the burst healing. So, you know, all I need is this consistent layer of HPS coming at me, and I think I'm always going to be pretty comfortable in dungeons. You know, Resto Druids can still do some pretty good damage too. It's not as overpowered as it was in Legion, but I think people are getting more and more accustomed to it. And the one good thing about Resto Druid is that they really don't have to try very hard to do damage. You can literally just put 2 dots, Sunfire and Moonfire, up on every pack, and you're going to do very, very good damage comparatively to any other healer for just 2 globals that you set and forget, and that's that. So that would be number 3. Number 4, I would definitely pick Holy Paladin. I think Holy Paladin is a very, very capable healer. Probably still one of the top healers. If I were to make a tier list today, I think I might have them at number 2 overall. Very bulky. Anytime a healer has an immunity and that much natural bulk, they're obviously going to be extremely useful in 5-mans. They're not as bulky as they were last expansion with the artifact, but still very useful. And that is another very invaluable thing that I find for healers. The healer has to stay alive. I can't be the one rezzing the healer. The healer's supposed to help me. I can't be helping them. And I find like this is a big problem. A lot of the times the healer is just struggling to keep up, dying all the time. And I think typically a bulkier healer is going to have a less frustrations in a lot of these dungeons now with some of these mechanics. But unfortunately, you know, a lot of their healing is melee oriented. I'm not a big fan of healers standing next to me. I don't really like that. It kind of clouds up some mechanics and makes, you know, some of fixes a little bit more complicated when you know, if we got 5 people standing next to you instead of just 4, potentially with 3 melee DPS. But regardless, still very, very good damage from Holy Paladin too. And I do like the fact that, you know, they now have a couple more talent, like more forward-facing talents that tell them, hey, do damage. Because again, last expansion, and I think it might be true this expansion still, but Holy Paladin was the #1 damage dealer of any healer. They were doing absolutely insane burst, and I think they still are. So yes, please, if you're playing a Holy Paladin and you're running with the Blood Death Knight and he's doing 22k HPS on an AoE pack, put down Consecrate. Use your CDs on some DPS. You know what I mean? You'll have them back up for the bosses. Stop being so stingy with DPS healers, please. That's the #1 thing that I would want to see. After that, Mistweaver obviously would be next. Mistweaver does not bring any discernible interest for me and any real synergy for me. I've seen Ring of Peace used very well in some groups, but I personally don't feel like I get any value for it. There's times when, you know, they've used them to prevent the spawn of Gahoon or even knock mobs out of Sanguine. That's nice, but for me, as, you know, kind of a control freak in my dungeons with these grips especially, I feel like I can just do this. I don't need them to do it for me. They do bring an AoE stun, which is nice, but they have to be in range for or in melee for it. So I think, you know, kind of just inferior to Shaman in that way. And I don't know, I haven't run with enough Mistweavers, but man, do I feel like they just never do damage. Like, I'm not sure where their damage might come from. We had this discussion in Legion as well, but I don't know enough about the spec to say one way or the other. All I know is that they do very, very good throughput. It seems like it's easy for them to do good throughput in dungeons, but again, I don't need that. That does not really help me. What I need is a healer that's going to be able to bring strong utility, a better focus for mechanical awareness and helping the group with such, and very good DPS. That's my primary concern. And typically the question, what is that Sard doing? Anyway, the question would have been, what's the #1 healer? Like what healer would you want to bring? And my answer would be the one that brings the most DPS. So that's a really big concern for me. But anyway, finally 6th overall is obviously Holy Paladin, or Holy Priest. If you've watched the stream at all, you know that if I ever see a Holy Priest, I'm very considering leaving the group, very heavily considering not running with this person. I think there is absolutely zero, it's not even like not 1%, 0% reason to play Holy Priest in 5-mans right now. People are probably going to argue with me on this again, but I don't see them doing anything better than Discipline. Not a single thing. Their niche really seems clear that it's very, very good for, you know, large group burst healing, and that's great. That's great for raids, but it has almost no impact on the 5-man meta at all. And really, the reason that they're always going to be number 6 in my eyes in both this and maybe a tier list in the future is because they share a class with Discipline, which is just absolutely very, very, very strong right now. No, I really don't think anybody could debate that now that they're back to being like the Absorb gods and they can do so much more consistent damage. So that's it. I don't know. That's the way I feel about it. Like I said, typically I don't really care that much about what healer comes. Like, you know, whatever. Besides the Holy Priest, any of the 5 healing classes, you know, any of the, I would see them and I'd be like, I'd be satisfied. You know what I mean? But the thing that I want to see is the healer contribute in ways that aren't just healing. And I know it's tough. It's the hardest role now. It really is. Tanking used to be a very tough role, but I'd say healing is even more difficult now. And it's, you know, you have to carry yourself. You have to carry the people making mistakes in the group, and you have to make up for the tank's weaknesses. And there are weaknesses. I'm playing a Blood DK. It's not, you know, it's not infallible, and I play it well. I'm very over-geared for what I'm doing half the time, but it's still, there are going to be times when I need help. So when that help comes, we have to synergize well. So it's not just class selection, you know? I mean, I can't say that for sure. But if I were, you know, again, to say class selection, I would definitely want to see Holy Priest, or, wow, okay, forget it. Disc Priest, because of how much DPS and you know, the Absorbs are just so useful for Blood DK. And Resto Shaman because of how much utility and just overall flexibility they can bring to the run. So anyway, thanks for watching. If you guys have any comments, let me know. Otherwise, yeah, we'll see you guys in the next one.